The top three here, Hamilton, Vettel, Verstappen, 13 world championships between them. Count them, Ted, down to you. Yeah, well, 7 for Hamilton, 4 for Vettel, 2 for Verstappen, 13, that makes 13. Nice one, Griffin, not too shabby.
In a few moments' time, we have the green flag, and in front of a capacity crowd, 5 lights are on. It's lights out, away we go. Verstappen does get away well.
Hello all and welcome in to WHF Tier 1 here in Round 2. You're joined by me, WHF Arrow, for this evening's action. Apologies for the late start. Restream just didn't want to work today, unfortunately. So if anyone is over on Twitch, I cannot hear you, or not even... You can hear me, but you can't see any gameplay, and it's kind of too late to fix that now at this point, so... Only people on YouTube can see this as things currently stand. You know what I think I'll do is I'll just keep putting the YouTube link over on the Twitch, because that's currently all that's going to work. Anyway, Mallard on an in lap. We've got Ty Clear and Momo Max on flying laps. What we've missed so far is AMS Apple currently on pole with a 27.1. Next it's Seth with a 27.2, followed by Cookie with a 27.2 1-0. 100th off 100th off Cookie, or 100th off Seth, sorry, as Hemi Dame's a 10th in behind, and then Gordon, there's a big gap to Gordon, 6/10, followed by Rio Harris. Missing 5 drivers today, 15 here in Tier 1. Yesterday, Tier 2 had a full grid of 20, so we seem to have reversed roles in the tiers, but Ty Clear now coming up to the final chicane. And what can the Tier 2 champion from last season do as the Aston Martin now comes around the final corner and up to the line? What kind of time does he put on the board? It's a 28.2, 4 thousandths off Kevin Kell, as Ty goes up in to P8. Next it's Womax up to the line. Where can he go? Also a 28.2, just half a tenth quicker than Kevin Kell and Ty Clear, as Cookie, current championship leader after winning by 10 seconds in Australia last time out. As he goes a little deep. Oh, and surely that's a botched lap as he runs onto the grass, but somehow he's still going. I thought he would have lost time, yet backs out of the lap does Cookie, as made a mistake there through the Dagnas. Meanwhile, we've got Ollie on a lap, also Liam starting a lap as well, but we'll go on board with the Season 3 champion. I don't believe he's pushing, so it will be Liam, as Liam's in the wall, exiting turn 1. Not ideal for Liam here, as if anyone here is watching on Twitch, the Twitch is bugged, so just go over to the YouTube to watch the stream. It'll be in the bio if you want to actually see the stream, because Restream for whatever reason isn't working today. as Cookie now on another flyer, backed out of that first attempt. Is another attempt now to improve. Needs over half a tenth as he's absolutely strangling the car through Sector 1 here. But needs over a tenth to get ahead of Apple and Seth, as Seth also out on the lap here. He's just starting his lap is through the first Degna. He goes little bit of a touch to the grass, gets a much better run through the second. Degner is cooking out into the hairpin, locking the rears as he gets the rotation and a spin from Cookie, and a rare spin from the 5-time champion here in WHF. Cookie appears to be struggling today. Said he had a lot of practice. A lot of drivers in the chat saying they've not had a lot of practice, although I have a feeling a lot of them are lying, because they are very quick despite this being their first laps. As Kevin Cal into the pit lane. Stephen Beecham, the Ferrari driver, won the Constructors with Ferrari in the F2 last season, as TJ also out on a lap, but he's invalid. Meanwhile, Mallard attempts the good. That would currently put him ahead of Stephen Beecham, but can Mallard get up any higher inside the top 10 here? As Mallard now exiting Spoon Curve, and up the hill as Seth goes quickest, a 27.0 for the Williams driver. Seth didn't have the most ideal race, started P4 last time out, but in the end did, as MS Apple goes to P1 with a 26.8. But as I was saying, Seth started P4, dropped down on lap 1 as Mallard does improve to P10. But and that's Gordon has gone around as well. As why did the camera angle do that? That was weird. Anyway, Hemi Dime's invalid. But Seth started P4, spun around lap 1, and then dropped. Was able to crawl his way back up the order and finish P6 in the end. So Seth, decent recovery drive for him. Apple as well, started from P16 and ended up P3 by the end of the race. Cookie started from pole 1, but now Apple and Seth looking very quick here today. And could they be considered challengers for the title? We'll have to wait and see. Rio Harris, big improvement up to P5. Gordon, an improvement, 3/10 improvement to Stephen Beecham with a 27.9 as well. Very decent time for the Ferrari driver. As I wonder, is Ty on a lap here? Might just be, as he's absolutely flying through the Degners. And up the gears goes last season's Tier 2 champion, now moves to Aston Martin. As Liam in the chat says, haven't had practice, can't kneel, turn 1 and turn 2. I feel like Japan is a track where you need to practice on. I mean, there's a lot of drivers at the front claiming they haven't practiced, but I doubt it. I feel like Japan is not a track you can just pick up and go. There's a couple of tracks on the calendar where I'm like, you gotta do some practice, surely. And a lot of drivers saying, Japan, I'll just do it. You know, it's pretty easy. But Ty now entering the final chicane. Does Ty have much time in this lap as he rounds the final corner now? Foot to the floor. And Ty up to P7, just shy of his teammate. And a thousandth ahead of Stephen Beecham, who was his Tier 2 rival and teammate all of last season. Won the Constructors' Championship together, did Ty and Stephen Beecham in Ferrari. And now Ty up to P7, very strong lap there, but does he have enough time? El Prat says, will Hitman join? Hitman did not take attendance, so no. That reminds me, I wonder, did Zenvious add me? As Cookie now on a lap through Sector 1. Absolutely chucking it through the first Stegner. May have picked up a lot of pace there. As Cookie now flying where? How much is he improving by is the question. We will see as he exits the spoon curve. Absolutely wringing the neck out of this Red Bull. And how much is he up as he exits Sector 2 and we enter the shortest third sector on the calendar. 6/10 to the good is Cookie. And could this be pole as he heads into the final chicane? Just going to nail his exit there. Very cautious on throttle, but as Cookie goes round the final corner now, up to the line, and Cookie with a 26.6. Brilliant lap there from the 5-time champion. I don't think Cookie will go again, so now it's towards Apple, Seth, Young Hemi Dimes and Rio Harris. Even Gordon as well in the mix for a potential pole here, although Gordon would need to improve by a second. We'll see if he can do it as Rio washes out a little bit wide. And we'll follow the Mercedes driver to see what he can do. Can Rio have a sniff at a result here? Rio currently P5, just a 10th shy of Young Hemi Dimes. All drivers looking to improve now. As I'll quick check, Apple just starting a lap, so we'll stay with Rio Harris on this lap. Don't know if anyone's really ahead of him that we can keep an eye on. Stephen Beecham just starting a lap. So Rio will be the driver to watch. As we did see Womack go up to P7 there. Gets ahead of Ty Clear, but just behind Gordon. Womack will stay there. As Hemi Dimes lets through Rio Harris. As Rio Harris, I think, was evens on his Delta. I think that's what that was saying. As he heads into the final chicane, got to nail his braking point and get the car rotated. Gets a good run through the final chicane. Can Rio pick up any time here as the Mercedes driver up to the line? Does improve by a 10th and gets ahead of Hemi Dimes, who's just starting a lap now. Seth heading through. Meanwhile, 2/10 to the good already is Apple. It's touch and go. Will it be Apple on pole or will it be Cookie? Apple now dumping the battery as he heads up the hill and into 130R. Almost 3/10 to the good. Apple just has to nail the final chicane and it could be pole for the V-Carb driver as he gets a lovely turn in and lovely rotation through that final chicane. Surely for the V-Carb, it's his first pole in WHF. It's not! That looked like such a good run through the final chicane and somehow he's missed out on pole by 0.02 of a second. It looked like surely he was nailed on for pole there. As Seth is around, Seth in P3 crashes, exiting spoon curve, so it looks like Cookie might keep pole position here. As Stephen Beecham now improving. And where can Stephen go is up to the line and gets ahead of Ty Clare by 6 thousandths. These two are so close. Meanwhile, Gordon, 2/10 to the good. Could he get ahead of Hemi or even Rio Harris? As round the final corner we go. Gordon in the Aston Martin driver. Up to the line, gets ahead of Hemi Dimes. Hemi Dimes though improving by a 10th. Can he get up to P4? As he may have touched the outside bit of grass there that may have hurt his lap. As Hemi Dimes now through the final corner does get up to P4, just shy of Seth's time. And a very strong qualifying performance by many drivers out there. Meanwhile, Thori up to the line. Big improvement there. No, it looks like he lost time. Meanwhile, Ollie up to the line. Where can Ollie go? Ollie improves to P12, just a 10th shy of Mallard. And there is your order for the day. Cookie, another pole. Just by 200ths. It looked like Apple was nailed on for pole, but somehow lost time through that final chicane. But I'm surprised. It looked like such a good run through that final chicane. Surprising to see him lose time there. But there you have it, Cookie on pole ahead of Apple. And what absolute scenes there. As Apple in behind Cookie. Seth in P3, Himmy Downs P4, Rio Harris P5, followed by Gordon, Momac, Seth, Ty Clare, Kevin Cal, Mallard, Ollie, Thori, Liam and TJ is your order for this evening. As someone in the... let me tell the drivers when they're ready up. I just realised. But we will have 27 laps around the Japanese circuit here in Suzuka. As... Apple says last chicane cost him pole easily, and it looked like a good run through the final chicane, but maybe lost time through it. But Cookie on pole here, but AMS Apple looking very punchy. Seth in behind as well. Hemi Dimes, Rio Harrison, Gordon, all that top six very, very fast. Anyone realistically could challenge for the win. Excuse me, I'm still sick, lads, if you're wondering. So, it's a bit of a struggle, but hey-ho. Get your predictions in the chat. Who do you think's going to win? Will it be... Will it be Cookie, Apple, Seth, or anyone else? We will see. Cookie and Apple looked very, very close in qualifying here. They might be the two favourite. What strategy do they go for? Japan is most likely a one-stop, but Thori in the chat, who's also racing today, says that there's going to be rain halfway in the race. So that may play into the strategies. It might be a medium to the inters or hard to the inters. We'll see what the drivers go for and how much impact will that play on this race here today. But we will have 27 laps around the Suzuka. Drivers have a minute before we get ready to go. Liam in the chat says mediums won't last till the rain, so we'll have to wait and see how this plays out. But the drivers should be running up in a moment's time. Get yourself a drink or some snacks and a box of popcorn for this one. It's going to be an exciting 27 laps around the Suzuka circuit here. Cookie leading the championship, will lead from pole, but can anyone in behind challenge very close? Are the drivers in behind? And still 11 rounds to go in this calendar. Liam in the chat says this is going to be chaos. Welcome in, Ash. I am not doing too great, but we're here for round 2 here in Tier 1. We've got 15 drivers to do 27 laps around the Japanese circuit here in Suzuka. And Cookie, the 5-time WHF champion, is going to lead us away as we have the 5 red lights on. And they're out as the drivers head away down into turn 1. Cookie's got a great start. So is Seth. Already ahead of Apple. Apple's bogged down off the start. Down to P3. Also has Hemi Dimes on his inside. Hemi dives it on the inside of AMS Apple. Beautiful start for the Ferrari driver. As Cookie gets a good start. So does Seth and Hemi Dimes. Apple down 2 positions off the start here as Rio Haas stays ahead of Gordon. We've kept it relatively clean as in the background. Everyone keeping it together here. Not much chaos as Liam battling with Thori. As we head through Sector 1, Thori now trying to get back through on Ollie. Almost pushing him into the Degnas. But everyone's kept it relatively clean here off the start. And lovely to see no lap 1 chaos as of yet. But a brilliant start for Seth and Hemi Dimes. Apple on those hard tyres struggle to get going. As TJ gets out of Liam. Liam's had a spin at the hairpin, but hasn't lost too much time still. Almost inside DRS and just needs to recompose. And Liam should be back in again. There's Thori. Pressure in the Season 3 champion as he runs wide. The dirty air swiping across his front wing is Kevin Cal now. Season 3 Tier 2 champion on the back. Or not, Season 4 Tier 2 champion on the back of the Season 5 Tier 2 champion of Ty Clear. As everyone keeping it relatively clean here on the opening lap as TJ goes very deep. May open the door to Liam. Meanwhile, Seth on the inside of Cookie. Cookie going to try to fan the inside. Seth going to pick the outside side by side. Go with the Williams to the Red Bull. And the Red Bull keeping it ahead of Seth. Seth already putting some pressure on the Red Bull driver here on lap 2. And Seth going to have to stay in behind. But Cookie on those hard tyres will not have his pace until later on the race. And is already having to defend for his life from the Williams driver. As he touches the grass there before we enter the Degnas. Hemi Dimes also touching the outside of the Degnas as well. Apple also involved in this train. And this train goes all the way down from first to last. TJ seems to be the driver struggling the most down in P14. As Hemi now on the rear of Seth. Apple looking to recompose after his lap 1. Struggles under the start there. Seth all over the rear of the championship leader, but can, as Apple got through at Hemi Dimes at Spoon Curve, must have went wide, did the Ferrari, and Apple now up into P3, an opportunistic move. Meanwhile, Seth now on the rear of the Red Bull. Apple watching this intently in behind, as thankfully everyone keeping it clean now. DRS enabled for Seth. Can Cookie defend from the Williams driver as he's got DRS and ARS engaged? Surely Seth gonna get into the lead now as he picks the outside of the Red Bull car and dances around the outside. And Cookie's around! Big spin for Cookie! Championship leader down and around! And Cookie at turn 1 losing a multitude of positions and may even lose out to Gordon. Down in P6 now as Cookie gets back in. Just down in P5, but Seth takes the lead as Cookie tried to be overzealous, wanted to keep his position, and now has dropped down the order to P5. That's handed Seth the lead now. Did Seth go over the limit though? We'll have to see what the stewards say after the race. I'm sure Seth believes he was in the right there. As Apple now back up into P2 where he started. Now this could be key. Who is on the right tyres and at what point? Meanwhile, Rio Harris now struggling to stay inside DRS range from Hemi Dimes. Cookie has got to recompose now as he's got Gordon for company in behind as well. Rio, though, seems to be the driver struggling, trying to stay with Hemi Dimes. Rio Harris new to no line, and we're seeing those struggles. Doesn't have the confidence. Meanwhile, Kevin Cal gets on the inside of Spoon Curve, gets out of Ty Clear, as Mallard gonna get down the inside of Ty Clear as well as they charge down to 130R, and Mallard surely gonna get ahead of Ty Clear. Yes, he does. Ty backs out there. And through we go. Meanwhile, Apple on the rear of Seth now. Apple gets a lovely exit out of the final chicane now as Hemi Dimes sets the fastest lap. Apple will take the lead. Hemi Dimes make it down the inside of Seth as well, and Seth loses 2 positions for the price of one as Hemi on the brakes, losing the rear as Cookie trying to get back through on Rio Harris again, but unable to get past the Mercedes driver. As Seth trying to put pressure on Hemi Dimes, but what a strong start it has been for the Ferrari. Now up into P2. Apple in the lead now as Cookie recomposing down in P5, but that early spin may have cost him some time as Kevin Cal now has lost DRS range from Stephen Beecham. But a chaotic start here as Mallard down the order. What's happened, Mallard? Potentially a spin as he goes off and around contact with Thori. I'm sure Mallard's not going to be happy about that as Thori also leaves the track, exiting the Degna curves. As Thori losing the rear, Mallard has to avoid the V-carb. With the rear stepping out there, Mallard going to try and get back ahead now of the V-carb if he can. As Mallard straight through around the V-carb and entering spin curve, Mallard going to get ahead as Liam following this battle along as well. As we have Hemi Dimes now on the rear of 130R, on the rear of Apple. As all these drivers checking up may help Rio Harris get back inside DRS range here. As Hemi now trying to chase after Apple in the background. We see Cookie on Rio Harris as Rio going to go defensive, pushing Cookie to the inside, and Cookie getting straight through on the Mercedes drivers. Hemi closing up to the rear of Apple, but not close enough to get ahead as Cookie gets through on Rio Harris with a little bit of argy-bargy from the Mercedes driver as TJ's retired in the pit lane. TJ not happy with how his races went this early on. As Gordon on the rear, is that Seth off? Seth and the Williams down from P3 down to P5. We didn't expect that. Seth has made a mistake through sector 1 and now down the order goes Seth, and he's going to be really frustrated with that mistake. Meanwhile, Hemi Dimes now struggling to stay with AMS Apple as Liam's made a mistake that's allowed Thori through up into P13. Maybe they both made a mistake because they've dropped off the back of Mallard as Hemi Dimes now surely going to dump the battery to try and stay with Apple as Cookie thinking the same thing. He's going to dump the battery to stay with Hemi Dimes, and Rio Harris now may lose DRS range as well along with Seth and Gordon following Seth's mistake there. As we head into the final chicane, Hemi Dimes back inside DRS range, Cookie back inside DRS range, but now Rio Harris is out. And that may now form a secondary train unless Rio Harris has the pace down the main straight here. Cookie sets the fastest lap as he heads down after the leaders. As Hemi now trying to put pressure on Apple. The medium tire still working for Hemi, but for how much longer will he have pace as Ty Clear gets round the outside of Kevin Cal as well. And Ty up into P9. As Cookie firmly back inside DRS range, inside the podium positions. This is exactly what Cookie wanted following his big spin. Meanwhile, Seth has had a spin now and he's down to P5. And that's going to be a little bit harder for Seth to get back inside DRS range. As in the background goes Womax off. Not quite sure what's happening. Womax gone deep off the deck. Maybe used too much of the sausage curb. And now down to P8 goes the Cyber driver, which is freed Stephen Beecham now along with Gordon as well. He tries to stay with Seth. As Hemi Dimes now on the rear of AMS Apple. As will Hemi go for a move into the final chicane, thinks better of it. Hemi going to look for the move out of the final corner if he can find the traction. Such a tricky traction zone though, and Apple seems to be nailing it every time. But Hemi now with DRS and ARS, can he close up? As Rio Harris is closing up back into DRS range, but not close enough on this lap. As Hemi using a tighter line through turn 1 as Ollie getting ahead of Kevin Cal there. Meanwhile, Cookie in P3 just managing here as Rio Harris in P4 with Seth in behind, going to try and recover after his mistake. But we're still very close together. That top 6 isn't too far separated. Rio desperately trying to get back inside DRS range as Thori around exiting turn 1, I believe. And Thori has made a mistake as Cookie on the outside of Hemi Dimes. What's happened, Hemi? Hemi's dropped down a bit. Has Hemi's tyres overheated? Has he made a mistake out of the darkness, which has opened the door for Cookie now to head into P2? But now Apple has escaped DRS range. Cookie now going to need to dump the battery to try and get back inside DRS range from the V-Carb. Meanwhile, Ollie also pressurised and Ty Clear down the order here as well. Can Cookie get back inside DRS range here? Surely he's giving it everything, and has he got it? Has he got it? I think he just about has. At the detection point, absolute. Just about. Did Hemi get DRS? I don't think Hemi has. Cookie does? He doesn't. Hemi does. Yeah, Hemi just about inside DRS range. Cookie gonna have to push for another lap to try and get back inside DRS range as Seth gets ahead of Rio Harris at turn 1. And lovely move there from the Williams drivers. Rio down to P5 now. With Gordon trying to stay in behind this battle. As Hemi on the medium tyre still doing well. But we're yet to see the rain. You'd honestly, if you're on the mediums, you want to see the rain right now. You want to box around lap 12 or 13. But the rain has to start at some point before you can get onto those tyres. Meanwhile, the hard runners, they're able to go a lot later in the race before needing to box for the wet tyres. As Cookie now exiting Spoon Curve. And the rear stepping out a little bit in the Red Bull, but now he's firmly back inside DRS range. Hemi Dames has now lost touch from the top two. And that's what it seemed like it was going to be. It didn't necessarily pan out that way. The top two really struggled off the start. But now, this is kind of what we were expecting. Apple and Cookie to be fighting over the win. And Apple now, is that rain on the visor? I see it is. It is rain as Cookie on the rear of AMS. Apple not close enough to making a move on the AMS drivers. Rio Harris going to get through on Seth and through turn 1 as Ollie through on Ty Clear as well. Ollie making his way up to P9 now as the rain is coming down now. Pretty ideal for the medium runners. However, the hard runners from Apple and Cookie have got the advantage anyway. They're basically on the same strategy. As Liam in for the Inters already. I think that's far too early. But he might be fixing the front wing as well. I think he is, and that's why he's had to come in this early. Big spin from Cookie. Massive spin. Rear end stepping on the Red Bull driver. And somehow catches it. Does Cookie. These rears overheating now. And losing grip on the wet surface. Will the lead runners come in for Inters? And also, everyone who does box on the Inters is going to need to manage them until the end, unless it goes to wets or dry again, which we have seen in the past. But whenever the crossover does happen, I don't think we're there yet. But whenever it does happen, these drivers are going to have to manage like their life depends on it. Cookie trying to catch Apple again. As Apple goes defensive through turn 1. As Cookie sees the door open out of turn 1. And can he get the better exit? He does. Side by side they go through turn 2. Through 3. Oh, both contact. Both around. Apple's around. As Cookie keeps the lead. And Hemi Dimes now up to P2. As Apple frustrated with what happened there. As Apple and Cookie come together now. And major implications for the championship. Cookie and Apple come together. And what will the stewards think about that? That was major drama. Meanwhile, Rio Harris and Seth, even Stephen Beecham as well, already out on the Inters. Have they gained it all from that contact between Cookie and Apple? As Apple down to P6 now, and another recovery drive for the V-Carb driver. A nightmare for him again here following big contact with Cookie. We're going to have to see what the stewards think after this one. As Apple, I'm sure, going to be very frustrated after that contact with Cookie. Not quite sure who was at fault there. It looked like just a 50-50, a coming together as they both ferociously fought over P1. But the stewards definitely going to be busy after that one trying to find out who was at fault there. As Cookie now going to come into the pit lane. As Hemi Dame's actually going to stay out, surprisingly enough. Gordon coming in as well. Womack's going to come in. Ollie in. Apple surely in. Yeah, he is. Ty in. Mallard in as well. Hemi Dame's the only driver out on the dry tyres still. And does Hemi gain it all? Or how much time is he losing? We'll look at the gap to the leader here. As the gap now at 17 seconds. We'll keep an eye on how much time Cookie can gain on Hemi Dames. Has Hemi Dames stayed out too long? As Seth gets through on Rio Harris through turn 1. As DRS now disabled. That's probably your indicator that Hemi Dames has stayed out too long. As Stephen Beecham now on the rear of Womax. A reminder, all the drivers now going to have to manage these inters to the end. And Gordon may have inadvertently inherited P2 following all this drama. He went in a lap later than Seth and Rio Harris. And Gordon now up into P3, which is a net P2 after Hemi Dames comes in, because he's already lost a second and a half to Cookie already. Staying out a lap extra on the mediums was not the idea to go for, but Hemi will have the lap fresher. The lap fresher inters to use when he does come in, but he's already lost a good 3 seconds to Cookie here. And I'm sure he's lost a lot of time to Gordon. Seth, Rio Harrison behind, may even lose out to Womax here. We'll see as Hemi Dames comes in. Just got to pick his braking point, gets in. No penalties here for speeding in the pit lane at the moment. As Cookie will inherit the lead. But where does Gordon exit? Does Gordon get ahead of Hemi Dames? We will see Hemi onto the inters. As Gordon now rounding the final corner. Where does Hemi Dames exit the box? Does he have enough time? Gordon dumping the battery surely to try and get out ahead of Hemi Dames. But has the Ferrari done enough? He has. Hemi Dames exits the box just ahead as Ty Clear picks up a penalty. And Hemi, I'm sure very happy that has the freshest inters out of the whole field. And exits just ahead of Gordon, Seth, Rio Harris. And Hemi Dames looking for another P2 this season. As Seth going to try and work his way past Gordon. And can Gordon take advantage of Hemi before Hemi gets his tyres up to temperature here? We will see. As Hemi, you can see, struggling for pace early on this interstint. Got to build the tyre up. But Cookie now 11 seconds in the lead. As Mallard and Ty Clear very close together here. Mallard all over the rear of Ty. As we head into the hairpin, Mallard gets early on the brakes. Trying to put pressure on last season's Tier 2 champion. As Mallard sticking with the Aston Martin drivers, he's losing the rear. Meanwhile, Gordon all over the rear of Hemi Dames. And can Gordon pick his braking point? Hemi's going to cover off the inside. As Gordon looks for the switchback. As in behind, we also had Ollie and Womax battle as the yellow flag's out. And Lewis, or aka Liam, has crashed. I think where we've seen Danica Fiat crash. It's a really weird place to crash, but safety car or VSC out. No one really going to benefit from it. Kevin Cal comes in. Not quite sure why. But there we have it, VSC out. Liam in the chat says, lost control out of Dagger 2. And went on the grass and spun to the right and hit the wall. As we're green flag now, Mallard on the rear of Ty Clear. As in up at the top though, cars absolutely everywhere. As we go green flag, Gordon off the track, Seth getting through now. Rio Harris gets through and Gordon as Gordon looks for the switchback out of Spoon Curve. Bit of bumping and barging between Gordon and Rio Harris as Rio drops down. After that contact there, absolute drama under that green flag restart. As all these drivers battling over the podium positions. As Seth now on the rear of Himmy Dimes. Himmy does have the freshest inters out there, but he just doesn't seem to be getting them working here in these inter conditions. As Seth in behind, trying to pressurise the Ferrari driver. Seth looking for his best position if he does finish on the podium. As Himmy defending well from the Williams driver in behind. As Apple now up in the P8 gets ahead of Stephen Beecham. Mallard ahead of Ty Clear as well through turn 1. As Seth still on the rear of Himmy. Himmy leading this train yet again. As Rio drops down a bit following a little bit of bumping and barging with him and Gordon. As Seth now on the rear of Himmy Dimes. And Seth, going for a late look into the hairpin there. Tried to find a way through. Oh, Seth losing the rear as we head down the hill, down to the entry. The Spoon Curve, Seth almost on the grass. Side by side they go. Contact with Himmy Dimes and Seth. And Himmy picks up a 3-second time penalty. We'll have to see what the stewards say about that one. As Gordon now gonna want to get punchy as well in here. As Seth gonna look on the inside of 130R. Risky place to be going for a move. As the Williams and the Ferrari go side by side. The Williams has to back out. Is Gordon around the outside now. Little bit of contact, I believe, with the Williams as well. As Ollie getting up into P6 now gets out of wall. Max as Apple almost lost the rear in the background there. As Apple now going to try and get out of Womax and Ollie. As Thorny picks up a 3-second time penalty. But Himmy Dimes now with that 3-second time penalty. That may cost him as Apple now on the rear of OMX. As we head down to turn 1, Apple going to try and dive it through on the Sauber. Side by side we go. As Himmy now down to P5. What's happened, Himmy? Himmy losing out to 3 drivers. And falling down the order. Not quite sure what's happened. Himmy Dimes there. Maybe more contact with Seth. The steward's going to be definitely busy after this race. So much contact throughout. As Rio now looking on the back of Gordon for a podium here. Meanwhile, Seth looking for P2, which would be his best finish in WHF. But currently, Cookie just absolutely striding out down the road. Doesn't really need to worry about what anyone else is doing at this point, does Cookie? That contact with Apple earlier on in the race has really defined the race. It seemed like the race win would be between Apple and Cookie, as Apple now hits Spoon Curve, catching Ollie unawares. And Apple getting ahead now of Ollie. As Apple now up into P6. Can Apple try and fight for a podium here? Despite his contact with Cookie earlier on the race, which I'm sure we'll see the stewards. Although we'll see who's at fault for that for sure. As Gordon and Seth still battling over P2 here. Gordon has the lap fresher inters. Himmy Dimes on the freshest inters out of all, except for Kevin Cal. Struggling a lot here as Mallard gets through of Stephen Beecham. Into P9 goes the Red Bull driver. As Gordon now on the rear of Seth. But we seem to have relaxed a bit now here on lap 16. As Seth just looking to defend P2. Cookie is checked out up at the front after that contact with Apple. As Apple now going to try and catch Hemi Dimes napping at Spoon Curve. Side by side they go. As Rio Harris picks up a 3-second time penalty. Apple gets through on the inside of Hemi Dimes. As Hemi going to try and get back through on the V-Carb driver. We charge up to 130R. Can Hemi find a way past AMS Apple here? The Ferrari unable to find a way through after Apple getting up to P5. Apple can see Rio Harris next in his sights. As it just seems like Apple out of the final corner has better traction than anyone else here. Hemi now down the order. Is Ollie already pulling to the inside to cool those inters? Is that why Ollie's pace has been so good this race? Really managing as Apple off the track now. Apple drops down to P6 as Hemi Dimes gets through back up into P5. And Apple, another mistake where he's going to have to try and recover here. As Hemi has been struggling this race, but so has Apple. As he drops down to P6. And Ollie now on the rear of Apple and Hemi Dimes, and Ollie looking for his best result of the season currently as it stands. Ollie could finish as high as P5 as things stand. As Gordon still trying to stick with Seth, as Seth now a further Seth now a further 19 seconds off Cookie. So Cookie seems to have this wrapped up here. As Apple now on the rear of Hemi Dimes. You're right, another wet race. WHF has had so many wet races so far this season. Not quite sure why. As Hemi Dimes now on the rear of Rio Harris. Both carrying some penalties here. As Rio trying to keep P5 here. Apple now on the rear of Hemi. Putting pressure on the Ferrari driver. He's going to look on the outside. As Apple on the rear of Hemi Dimes. Seth seems to pull the gap now to Gordon. Apple on the rear of Hemi Dimes. Picks the outside of Spoon Curve. And Hemi got off the back out now as Apple gets through up into P5 now. Apple going to head after Rio Harris next and try and recover. Meanwhile, Ty on the rear of Stephen Beecham. Rivalry rekindled here from Tier 2. As Apple on the rear of Rio Harris. Stephen Beecham defending from Ty Clear. Ty going to pick the outside. as the two rivals from last season swap positions yet again. Stephen down to P11 now, but Ty still carrying that penalty. Meanwhile, Apple searching for a move on the Mercedes driver. As Rio losing a lot of time now to Gordon up ahead. And Apple wanting to get a move on, a little bit of a train has formed behind Rio Harris, struggling now in these interconditions. As Apple now trying to find a way through on the Mercedes driver. As Rio goes a bit wide of the apex, and Cookie coming in now for another pit stop. Possibly just on the fresh inters. As Apple now going to pick the outside of 130R. What a risky place to be going for a move from the V-Carb, and dances round the outside, does the V-Carb. What a move as Rio dives it on the inside of the V-Carb. Side by side they go. And Rio now back through again as Apple comes in. On to another set of enters. Apple going for the undercut on this pack as Seth now Seth now on the back of Cookie, who's exited the box, still in P1. What a stint from Cookie to pull that big of a gap, but he had the pit stop advantage. But is anyone going to try and one stop from here? Are these inters going to go to the end, or will we see drivers pile into the pit lane now as Hemi on the rear of Rio Harris? As Cookie now will surely seal off in the distance, but where does Apple end up here? Do drivers come in on this lap, or will they stay out and try and manage those inters to the end? We will wait and see. Either way, Apple's pulled the pin for the undercut. Walmax now on the rear of Ollie. And trying to find a way through. Gordon still following Seth here. Unable to get the move. But no one's come into box, no one's bit the cherry. Or bit the apple, as the apple bites the curb and goes wide. And has Apple made a mistake here by boxing onto the inters? We'll have to wait and see. Does he have the pace to catch? As Walmax and Mallard now swapping positions. As Mallard looking for his best finish of the season. Ollie now on the rear of Hemi Dimes. As they follow along the Ferrari and the Mercedes. As it stands now, Ollie could get a P4 here. Best finish of the season. Mallard even looking at a P5 as well. Meanwhile, Gordon and Seth still following each other. And Gordon still trying to catch Seth, but doesn't seem to be anywhere close. As Ollie on the rear of Hemi Dimes. And doesn't necessarily need to do anything too crazy as Gordon now all over the rear of Seth. Can the battle for P2 still go on here? As Gordon touches the grass there. As he's trying to shape up for a move on the Williams driver. The Williams driver been defending for so long here. But will there be an opening for Gordon here to finally get ahead of Seth? As Gordon now following the rear of the Williams driver. And can Gordon get a good exit here? As Womack picks up a penalty, that may cost him some positions with Hemi Dimes and Rio up ahead, who already had penalties. As Gordon now through Spoon Curve, putting pressure on Seth, but Seth defending well here. And Gordon so close but unable to get the traction out of the corners here to really lay a glove on the Williams driver. And in these wet conditions is just a real struggle for Gordon to get anywhere close. Meanwhile, Apple, who did pit onto those inters, I think that's been a mistake. He's still down in P11 with only 5 laps remaining in this race. But you never know, maybe these inters could fall off at the very end and potentially be in puncture territory, which could hand Apple an easy position back up the order again, but he would need the drivers to be suffering from puncture soon. As this will be a good result for Williams and Aston Martin here. First podium of the season for both these teams. Meanwhile, Ollie still trying to hold on to the rear of Hemi Dimes and Rio Harris. If he stays where he is now, he'll get up to P4. I think Mallard, is he inside Rio's threshold? Just outside of it. So Mallard's going to get a bit of a move on if he wants to get into P5 with that penalty threshold. As Gordon still putting pressure on Seth here. Can he get the traction out of turn 1? Gordon now on the outside, looking for way through Seth, still defending well. Another switchback from Gordon, still unable to get ahead of the Williams driver. The Williams driver defending so well. And the Irishman defending from the Englishman, as they've done for 800 years, as Gordon now here on lap 24. Feels like it's been 800 years trying to get past the Williams car ahead. As Seth locks the rears into the hairpin. Can Gordon get the exit now out of the hairpin? An absolute drag race down the Spoon Curve as Gordon now putting so much pressure on the Williams. Will he give in to the pressure? As down the inside of Spoon Curve, looks on the inside. And Seth keeping it ahead now, but can Gordon get the rotation out of Spoon Curve? Dump the battery, go for a send. Seth now really under pressure from the Aston Martin driver. And Gordon may look for a send into the chicane. Can Seth defend? Gordon does, he has a little look on the inside, but no gap for the Aston Martin car. And Seth still defending. As Thorey off the road. And Gordon losing his rear now out of turn 2. And that might have been all she wrote for Gordon. Has he got enough in the tank to still put pressure on the Williams? He's given so much pressure to the Williams, and the Williams still holding on. But can Gordon now get a good exit out of the S's? Up the gears we go, putting pressure on the Williams driver. And Seth with a big spin somehow has caught it. Oh my word, how's he caught it? I don't know. Oh, and contact between Seth and Gordon. And Seth looks to be letting through Gordon. I don't think Gordon knew that was happening. But Seth finally does let through Gordon. I think Seth tried to let him through to apologise for the spin, but in the end, he ended up kind of brake checking Gordon accidentally. I don't know if that was his intention, but either way, Gordon now up into P2 after all this time. As Seth now charging after Gordon again. And through 130R, Gordon keeps it ahead. We're here on the penultimate lap as Seth down the inside of the chicane, backs out now. As Gordon now going to look to escape down the road. Can Seth get ahead of the Aston Martin driver? As Seth appeared to struggle through Sector 1. Now that he's the chasing driver, will that change? Meanwhile, another story here. Apple now only up to P10. That pit stop has not worked at all for Apple. And has lost himself a heap of points here in Japan. Meanwhile, Seth struggling through Sector 1. That may have allowed Gordon now to check off down the road. As Seth probably doing the nice thing to let Gordon through, but he didn't really necessarily do anything wrong. He just made a mistake. I mean, it wasn't really like he turned in on Gordon or anything. He just lost the rear through the first Dagna and then decided to try and let him through out of the second Dagna, but Gordon was into the rear of the Williams. Not sure what he was doing. As Apple now gotta try and get through on tie clear. Meanwhile, Seth seems to have dropped largely back from Gordon now. As Cookie's now started the final lap. Apple now going to try and get through on tie clear. Apple through 130R, side by side we go. And the Aston Martin leaves the track there and hops onto the grass. As Apple does get through after going for a risky move there. And Apple up into P9 now. Meanwhile, Gordon 2.3 seconds up the road from the Williams now. It looks like Gordon has P2 in the bag. As Seth dropping down like a stone in water. Oh, and Seth losing the rear massively through the hairpin. And now it seems to be just a survival job for the Williams driver. But we're going to go on board now with the man of the hour, Cookie. It's not been the most comfortable drive for Cookie. I know it has seemed that way in the second stint. But Cookie will win the race as he rounds the final corner now. The Red Bull driver will cross the line and win by 21 seconds in dominant fashion. Although the first stint was nowhere near that easy. After contact with Apple, it did become that easy. But it might not have been so easy if Apple didn't have that unfortunate spin, as Gordon gets a season best P2. Seth for the first time in WHF will finish on the podium. Meanwhile, Rio Haas may hold on to P4 as he's gapped Hemi Dimes and Ollie in behind. as Ollie will jump ahead of Hemi Dimes. Does Mallard get Hemi Dimes? No, he does not, as Apple gets ahead of OMX. Meanwhile, Ty Clear in P10. Stephen Beecham now down to P11, as Kevin Kell will finish in P12. But what a race it's been for Cookie. What a race for Gordon Seth as well. As Rio gets P4. But I'm sure the stewards will be busy after that one. As Cookie wins yet again here in Japan. 2 wins on the bounce for the 5-time champion. Although I'm sure the stewards are going to be busy. After Cookie's contact with Apple, it did really change the complexion of the race entirely. But there you have it. Cookie wins again ahead of Gordon, Seth, Rio, Ollie, Hemi Dimes, Mallard, Apple, Womack, Ty Clear, Stephen Meacham, Kevin Kell, Thori will all score points. Meanwhile, Liam and TJ retired from the race. So 13 finishers today and 13 point scores. But Cookie wins again. Meanwhile, Apple down in P8 loses a heap of points following that spin. Also, he did recover, but that late pit unfortunately would cost Apple big. But anyway, thank you all for watching. If you have enjoyed, please drop a follow, like, share and subscribe. I've been WHF Aaron. We'll see you next week for another round of WHF as we head for round 3, as if I'll have a quick look at the calendars. Tier 3 heads to Japan, Tier 2 heads to Miami, and Tier 1 heads to Bahrain. But anyway, thank you all for watching. I've been WHF Aaron, and we'll see